Good morning, everyone, and thank you guys so much for joining. Welcome Hunter, Mason, Raphael, Jamie, Maine, and David to the stream. Thank you guys so much for joining today. Of course, the main things we have to talk about is what's going on with AMC, Gamestop, CLOV. Those stocks just exploded out of nowhere yesterday. I know that a lot of people are watching them, and even like AMC Squeeze was trending on Twitter. So, Tom, like, what do you see in pre-market so far?
So far it's been kind of down. We didn't really see too much upwards movement so far this morning. It did try to break up very slightly in pre-market, but then we just came right back down. The good news is, though, is that it looks like heading here into open, we are getting a nice pop back up. And if we keep this momentum at open, if we start to see some big green candles come out, I think we could easily get back above $48.20, which was the high of yesterday. And I would target kind of $50 here. I think $50 would be a pretty good resistance over the next couple days for AMC. And I'll be honest, this momentum, even though we did kind of go down this morning, it's not like we necessarily fell off a cliff. We're more like Friday's closing price. So honestly, it's still a pretty good stock. And I love the momentum coming into it at open. I think it'll really drive it up.
Good stuff. And then also welcome Mindy, David, Ed, Vicky, and then, Hunter's already been welcome, but it looks like we have Hunter mentioning LWAC. So this, wow, Tom, holy, this is crazy. Went all the way up to like $70 in pre-market, and now it's at $22.
Yeah, Locust Walk acquisition. I wonder who they acquired. Wow, what a move by them. This move was insane. I cannot believe $8 yesterday, all the way up to $70 in pre-market. That's insane.
Yeah, that's crazy. And then we also have Manny asking about SoFi, SOFI. So yeah, that one's trending up pretty nicely. And we have David saying, I have a question on a Neo Leap I bought yesterday when the time is right. Yeah, for sure. Just feel free to ask it whenever you're ready, David. But Tom, how's the opening so far on some of these stocks? It looks like CLOV is down 2% or so. AMC, I would expect the same thing. No, AMC's holding its ground. So yeah, it looks like they're doing pretty decent. Cruise lines like RCL also holding their ground. How's DraftKings? DraftKings is trying to break out. I don't know if you see that.
Yeah, it's trying to. It's still having some problems this morning, but I love the candles that open so far, and it kind of bounced off of these SMAs that open, and it's just been really volatile so far this first minute with DraftKings, so we'll have to see how it ends up going. But with them kind of breaking that pre-market high, I would hope that they'd end up running here and maybe catching some more green momentum. I know it definitely looked good yesterday. They broke $55, ran up to that high of day, and then started consolidating. But man, look at that pop yesterday at open. If we get another move like that today, it would be really significant. And I would think we'd get up towards $60 if we see another move like this. But man, you're right. AMC and CLOV are just kind of slowing down here at open. Well, actually, AMC is actually keeping up the momentum like we kind of talked about. But CLOV, if for some reason, is starting to really sell off. Not a good sign there. Let's go check out GameStop. Looks like GameStop sold off, and now they are coming back up kind of like AMC. So maybe these hype stocks will continue up today. I love how AMC itself is going. And man, I hope that they can kind of take over again and start to run, because, it seemed like a lot of people were getting into a bunch of different stocks and kind of straying away from AMC. But if everyone just came back to AMC and focused on that, I think it would really drive it up.
Good stuff. And then we also have even stocks like Boeing, they're selling off a little bit at open, and the SPY's just actually still green. So lots of interesting movement so far today. Pfizer's fallen a good amount, which is good to see. I'm trying to see what else we have moving. Sean said liking MU. Let's see. Wow, MU's looking pretty good, Tom. Lots of good momentum.
Yeah, that's actually a really good pop-up with MU, and their daily's looking really good off that 70 support. I really like this one. It's one of my favorite stocks. I know I've been talking about it quite a bit, and I really love them, and I love how it's kind of filling this gap here. And I would think that we could start to go back up over the next few weeks. Now, we are kind of having quite a few a good days of movement in a row here. Not necessarily huge green days by any means or anything, but just be a little careful. They have been going up for the past few days, so just watch a little bit for some consolidation. But I do like MU, and I think it'll end up doing well for the next few weeks. And I'm wondering how Qualcomm is kind of looking today with MU, and it looks like Qualcomm might be slowing down very slightly. They're not breaking out quite as well.
Gotcha. So then David said, so for Neo, it says the delta is 0.83 and the break even is $43.55. Does this remain constant till expiration in January of 2023? So the break even is going to remain constant. Of course, the expiration is, but the delta is going to be changing literally like every day. So just keep that in mind. Like especially as you get closer to expiration, and depending on how NEO moves, that delta will be changing quite a bit. So keep that in mind. And then Maine said, guys, thoughts on Chinese stocks, especially when CNBC talking about they might get delisted. So of course, it is a risk. Like if we look at BABA, like it's down a little bit today, but just keep in mind that you're going to see a lot of different news articles and opinions from analysts and all that stuff. So take everything you hear with a grain of salt. However, it is a real risk of them getting delisted. No doubt about that. But overall, they're downtrending today. They're still at really low levels. So, if you're someone who thinks that, these stocks are not going to get delisted, they're at good levels to dip by, but, just understand the risks of if they actually do get delisted. That would be horrible.
Yeah, that'll be really bad. And I read that a lot of investors would lose billions and billions of dollars if that happened. Possibly, I don't know if I would say probably trillions with all the Chinese companies added up. But man, definitely not good news with them. And just be a little careful. I think that they could end up coming up though over the next few weeks, but it's just really hard to say right now. Personally, I wouldn't be getting in, but I know a lot of people are selling puts on them and stuff. And I think that might be the smarter way to go is, maybe sell some puts around like the 150 strike or something around there.
Good stuff. And then, Tom, we have DraftKings breaking out, looking good.
Yeah, 57.61. That's a pretty solid move up actually today. And I know that in pre-market we had some great news where Kathy Wood was buying in, Mike. I'm sure you saw that article.
Oh, yeah.
That was really good news to see. How much was she buying of it, Mike?
Did it say 60 million or something like that?
Yeah, you're right. 60 million, I think 1 million, about 1 million shares over a few of her different funds. So I'm sure ARKK probably got some as well as a few of the other ones, but really good movement today out of DraftKings. And man, anytime Kathy comes in, she usually brings in the volume with her, and really glad to see it popping up like this today. Awesome moves. And, congrats to anyone who's been holding shares of DraftKings. Like, it was such a good buy down there around those supports. Like, anyone who's been holding shares, congrats to you.
Oh, yeah. One of my favorite stocks for, the next couple years. And then we have Raphael saying SPRT. Let's take a look at this one. So it looks like it's back up, Tom. It's up 14% today, and it's trying to break out above 1470, but we're a little under $1 off.
Yeah, what a nice pre-market run the stock had. This was a really nice move actually, up to around that 1435 high there. But yeah, I'm with you. I hope that it can kind of get that momentum back and go back up today. It just almost looks like a little bit like lower highs to me, which scares me a little bit for this movement right here at open. But I really like it for the next maybe day or two if we can break the all-time high. But until we break it, personally, I just won't look at it too much. But like I said, once it breaks it, I think we'll see a pretty solid move. And the good news is that it came back up this morning in pre-market. So I think if we hold $13, we might have a shot to go back up, but I don't think we will.
All right, and then we have Ed saying SAVA is down big time. So yeah, it's down 30%. Looks brutal. IVs popping up. It really does look not good.
Yeah, 30% is never a good move at all. That's a pretty bad gap even on the daily chart. And man, this one was really looking like it was going to possibly start to run and maybe retest $140 at those all-time highs, but posted lower highs, failed to break out above 125 and came right back down and just not looking good. But Mike, we do have AMC kind of popping back up again here at open, getting back to that high of yesterday around 48.20. Honestly, it looks pretty good, and it looks like we might go up and break that high today. This momentum is looking pretty strong after that sell-off at open.
All right. And then we have, Jorge saying, morning, guys. CRWD is testing all-time highs again. Let's take a look. CRWD, do they have, earnings today after close? Let's see. I thought they did.
Yeah, they do.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, it looks like
they don't.
But yeah, it looks like it. Hold on, let me see. Okay, no, they have earnings in a couple days, actually, on the 31st.
It was Salesforce that had it today.
Okay, gotcha. So Salesforce has it today. CrowdStrike has it in a couple days. So good to know. CrowdStrike, either way, they are having that kind of pre-earnings run-up, you can say. They're in a solid sector and they're breaking out. So it's good to see. Tom, do you have any levels for us? Like, I know it's hard to gauge because we are at that all-time high.
Yeah, honestly, that move up above like 272, like 273 up to that all-time high was awesome. I really like that breakout right there. I think that was like the best way to play it was that breakout this morning right on there. It would have been hard to get in that quick though. It was only moving for around 60 seconds right there. So you would have had to been pretty fast, but I will say there's a pretty big resistance at 275. I'd be a little bit careful of that over the next few days, but hopefully it can move up above that because we just broke out, like I said, above 271, 272 area. So I think that we could end up running up above 275 and maybe head up towards 280. But like you said, it's hard to say because we're at all-time highs right now. And it's just, there's no overhead resistance areas besides these like psychological levels, like 275, 280, and etc. But it looks like right now on the 1 minute, we are coming down off of 275 pretty well.
So, Tom, Pfizer's getting destroyed. Like, what levels do you have for us? Like, where do you think this can end up going to?
Yeah, I just saw this. This is really tanking off today. I mean, man, it's starting to really sell off. I'm not too sure how low we can go, but it looks like, I would say we're about the candle size of yesterday. We're already down 2%. I wouldn't think we could go down too much more today. I would say maybe retest like $47 or something, but it honestly looks pretty good to the downside. And, like a lot of people say, buy the rumors, sell the news, right? And looks like with PFE, everybody was hopping in, hoping that it would go up off that FDA approval, but the stock just ends up tanking off and catching everybody by surprise, unfortunately. But it ended up being a really good play for us since we had puts on them.
Oh, yeah. And then we have Mindy saying AMD 108 call green. There we go. So that's good to see. AMD is popping up a good amount. Hunter said JWN is down big. Let's take a look. Wow, 15%, Tom. This is, crazy.
Yeah, Nordstrom, wow, pretty bad to see with them, but they're down by support, which is decent. But man, it looks like they might fall down below support and fall back below. Not looking good, but their earnings were looking pretty decent, though.
For sure. Alrighty, and then I'm just trying to get to next question. We have Vicky saying, Tom, you seem to be far from the mic, and Mike is more close. So we're going to have to fix it after the stream, but thank you definitely for the feedback, Vicky. We really appreciate it. Freddie said PENN is finally breaking out of that 74 resistance. So that's great to see. I know we've been talking about Penn for forever, Tom, and it was at a great level. And I think in the grand scheme of things, it's still at a pretty good level for a dip buy.
Yeah, me too. I think it looks really solid, and there's a pretty solid resistance here, like at like $75, $76. And I will say, if we can break out of like that and then break out above $80, this stock will really run. And I mean, man, there's a lot of upwards potential. I would think for like the next few months, I would honestly target somewhere like around $95 to $100. That $100 resistance looks pretty strong, and I would hope that we go up and retest that. And plus, it's going to be a really big psychological level too, which is going to definitely help, help the stock as far as hitting off of that and possibly going back down. But definitely, I think it'll drive buyers up into that level because, it's a pretty solid resistance. I think a lot of people will definitely eye that up as well as 95, but it looks really good. Like I said, if we can break out over the next few days, it'll look very solid. My only concern is that we've had like 4 or 5 green days now in a row, pretty solid green days too, like 2.5% gainers each day. So it's been looking pretty solid for Penn. And it makes me think that we might see a couple days of consolidation, but hopefully we start to see some actual like breakout candles where we see some pretty solid moves, kind of like on some of these days where we've had like big 5 to 7%ers on Penn.
Alrighty, so Tom, I know we already talked about it, but just one more time, DraftKings, like they're going for like a 4% up day now. Like it's just exploding up, and I love to see it. They're an amazing company, one of my favorites, and I'm just glad to see them pop off like this.
Yeah, really solid. I love to see it moving up to 58, almost up to $60. And, I was thinking maybe we could hit 60 today. And maybe we will. I was thinking it was a little unrealistic, but man, we're already up 3.8. I mean, this momentum coming into here is very hot. Also, Kathy's getting in and it's moving very well off these like SMAs down here and the support. So very good for DraftKings. It was moving so good off of their supports. And, one thing that I think, what I'm really laughing at, Mike, right now is these Hindenburg guys. I really hope that they're getting killed on their shorts right now. Like,
Yeah.
they were coming in saying DraftKings was terrible. Sure, they made DraftKings go down for a couple days, but man, it honestly almost brought the buyers back in and just created better opportunities for us. And thank you, Hindenburg. I mean, man, I couldn't thank you enough for, making DraftKings fall for us like that. And now it's flying back up. I love to see it. And Kathy's buying in. She has confidence. So great stock. And I'm glad the momentum is back because after that Hindenburg thing, people were really worried about it. And now it's, I'm glad that investors are kind of getting that confidence back. And, just especially with like the NFL starting and everything too, people are starting to really think that these sports stocks could do very well this winter.
Oh, yeah. No doubt about that. And then we have Spacely saying, morning, guys. Welcome to the stream, Spacely. Guys, if you like our content, definitely hit that like button. We would really, really appreciate it, and it would help us out so much. Then we have Corbin saying, how does Redfin look? I think it looks really good for like a dip buy. It is more of like a longer term play though. Like it's had like 5 green days in a row so far. So like I said, it's more of a longer term play. It doesn't mean that it's gonna be up to $55 by Friday. But I've been looking at some leaps on it, and I'm really considering some leaps.
Yeah, and I know you've been talking about this one for the past couple days, and man, it was looking really good down there around that support of $45. And I love these green candles coming back. And you're right, there's still a lot of potential for the longer term. And even in the short term, like let's just say we come up and retest $60, which isn't really too big of a move for a stock like Redfin. That's a solid 16% gain just on the stock alone. So that's a pretty solid move, honestly, for shares, especially if you had shares. But even if you had calls, that would be a good move as well. And I really like Redfin, Zillow, and a couple of those other ones, Mike. I know that we've been talking about them in the streams and on the videos quite a bit, but I really like them, and they're at supports. And it almost reminds, it's not quite as like good as DraftKings right now, but I do like them.
All right, and then we have 11 saying TSM looks solid. Yes, it does. It's up like 6% today. It's really popping off, and just that whole like I guess you could say like chip sector is just been exploding over the past couple of years.
Yeah, over the past couple of years and even the past couple of days, like TSM having that great move to the upside. We have NVIDIA actually breaking out to like all-time highs just yesterday, and now today actually moving back up to there. So solid moves there. Let's go check out AMD, see how they're doing. They're catching some green candles, but they are quite a ways away from their all-time highs, but their green candle is looking pretty solid today. And the other ones like MU was looking pretty solid earlier on. Looks like their candle, though, actually turned red, Mike. Unfortunately, MU is coming back down on the intraday chart, but they're still definitely above their closing price of yesterday, which is nice to see. But overall, you're right. These chip stocks have been doing so well. And I heard that they're supposed to do pretty well even for the next 10 years. Like the CEO of Intel came out and, of course, it's the CEO of Intel, the stock that's been doing pretty bad lately. But he came out and said that over the next 10 years, he expects this sector to really pop off. And I'll be honest, Intel doesn't look too bad. It hit right off the 1,000 SMA. I don't think this one's too bad for like a start to average in either, but keep in mind, I would only average in like 1/4 of a position at this price.
Gotcha. So, Tom, it looks like so we have Maine saying, Tom, we are getting some sort of echo and sounds a bit weak. So, I don't know, like it sounds normal to me, but Vicky also had a comment about that. So, we apologize for that, guys. I know that we definitely had some technical difficulties yesterday, so we have to fix some things, and we'll definitely take care of it after the stream because we don't know the problem this second, but we'll definitely figure it out. Thank you so much, Maine, for leaving that comment. We have David saying, thoughts on BB. So BB, it's one of those hype stocks, Tom, and it's running up. It was running up with like AMC yesterday, and especially if we see a continuation out of AMC, CLOV, and Gamestop, this can also be a huge runner.
Yeah, BlackBerry is one of those big like hype stocks too, and I love how they were sitting at support around $10 too. Really solid. Just like we saw with GameStop and the others. They were sitting right around support, started popping up, and I'm glad to see BlackBerry following along. And you're right, this one could really start to pop up if this move continues with AMC and GME and just the hype stocks in general. So I hope to see it. I'm glad to see the IV starting to turn back up too, and that'll really make those call options go up in value by quite a bit.
Good stuff. All right, and then with the next comment, we have Kumar saying, "Good morning. Thoughts about Moderna?" So personally, I think this is still like a dead cat bounce. It's just like lingering around 400, but just it's so elevated. Like especially when you look at like a daily chart of Moderna. I think it can definitely like retest that support right at 350 over the next couple weeks. But with this one, you have to be very careful of that like implied volatility and options pricing. These options are crazy expensive. Like let's say like you're gonna need some time on them. So let's say you go to October's expiration, and like one at the money call or put costs around $3,500. So either you neither have to use spreads on it or get creative with how you play it.
Yeah, definitely. And Moderna is going to be pretty hard. Like, man, that's going to be pretty hard to kind of like time, a trade with Moderna. It's going to be hard. I don't know like which way you're looking at it for the upside or the downside, but I would say like over the next day or two, personally, it looks like it could go up, but I would lean more towards the downside over the next like few months. So it's hard to say right now. I will say though, that $500 resistance is going to be pretty strong. So maybe watch out for like a possible like rise or retest of that level. We might not get all the way back up to 500, but I could see it popping up a little bit over the next couple days, maybe up to like the 440 resistance.
All right, and then we have, all right, so it looks like that's the questions for now. Vicky said resistance and support for Penn for DT, please. So PENN, let's take a look. PENN, it's up like 3%. Let's intraday, we have resistance right around like $76.20, which is the high of day right now. There is a big support at $73.50. I'm trying to see if there's any other main levels. Give me 1 second. There is a pretty big resistance level right around like $77.50, and then also 78.
Yep, and I see one pretty big, like right where we are almost right now as well. And there's definitely a lot of resistance coming up with Penn, but I think that the momentum is definitely looking good, and it almost seems like it's moving up with DraftKings. Like DraftKings is doing very well today, so is Penn, and hopefully that whole gaming sector can kind of get some renewed momentum and start to fly back up, because it's been getting killed for the past few weeks, and it's been pretty hard to trade it lately. But hopefully we can start to see just some solid movement back up, kind of like we've been seeing for the past 4 days. But I'd be really careful of that resistance around 80. I think that's going to be where we might like hit some big resistance and maybe start to consolidate, is somewhere around $80. But the good news is that we're still around 4 points away from there. So you could still get a pretty good move up to 80 if that does happen.
Good stuff. And then also for DT, Tom, DT, what levels are you seeing?
Dynatrace, I've actually never heard of this company, but man, it sounds really cool. But looking at it on the daily, really good chart, I'll say though. I love the way that it's been stair-stepping up really solidly. Really hard to give like a solid area right now besides this all-time high around $66, $67. I would say just watch for the resistance at 67. If we can break out above that, I think that we could start to stair-step ourselves back up again. But I'll be honest, this stock doesn't move much in pre-market. It's definitely more for me like a longer-term hold for shares, but it'd be hard to buy it up here at the top like this. I would say if anything, it could be good to possibly swing as it's breaking all-time highs, but just be really careful. We're right around that resistance, so we could always hit this and start to double top and come down. But if we see a good breakout tomorrow or possibly later today above the high of day today, I think it could have a pretty solid move. And I don't know what this company does, but it looks really solid right now.
Yeah, so I will read the description right now. So Dynatrace is a global tech company that provides a software intelligence platform based on AI and automation to monitor and optimize applications and stuff like that. So that's awesome. That was just straight from the Google Google summary page about the company. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like they're in a great sector. Anything with, especially tech, but especially AI and automation will be huge over the next couple years. So great call out, Vicky. And then we have Maine saying, thoughts on Chewy today? Any levels to look for, please? Let's take a look. CHWY, I know they've been doing pretty well over like the past couple days. I would say there is a pretty big support right at 90. If we look intraday, there's a little bit of a resistance right at like 93 or so. Honestly, it's not my favorite setup in the world right now. It's not bad. It's just like, it's not like it's moving like DraftKings is. So there isn't like a ton of momentum. Tom, do you have like any extra levels for us?
Yeah, I mean, as far as Chewy goes, I really like the resistance up here at the top around 100. And keep in mind the resistance of a few days ago up there around 97 to 98 is going to be very significant as well, where it hit and then started to come down. Let's go look at it on the 1 hour just to make sure it didn't go up in pre-market. So yeah, it looks like that high up there is around $98 even just about. So watch out for that. I really like that support though around 90. I think that'll be pretty solid over the next couple days. If we break below 90, I would almost look at puts on Chewy, at least in the very short term, not for the long term. For the long term, I like their shares, and I think they'll end up going up overall. But if we do break that 90 support, watch out for the stock going down. And I would say if we break out above like 94, it would be pretty good.
Awesome. And then let's see. And then we have Jorge saying Nvidia just doesn't want to stop. So let's take a look at that one. I know that they've been a power. Wow, I literally can't believe how much they're exploding up. Like, I know that they were going crazy like back in like July, but Tom, they just keep going.
Yeah, these AI stocks are just getting too crazy right now. And the good thing with Nvidia is that they're so, like, the demand on their graphics cards is so high that like the second that they release them, they get bought up right away by all these resellers, all these bots, all these things programmed to just buy it automatically from these companies and stuff. So it gets really weird, like whenever they like release new product and stuff, which is honestly good for them. Like anytime they release anything, it just gets sold out right away. So great news for Nvidia. They have great products and stuff, and I'm glad to see them going up the way they are. But the thing that really worries me is whenever I look at their earnings report, they only had like a 1.04 EPS, and in the past they were posting like 3.66, 3.1. Now I know that they had that 4-for-1 split, so that could definitely affect that, I'd say. And I'd have to like look at it on a certain basis. The good news is that it beat the estimate, which was good, but I just would have expected some higher numbers from them. But looking at it, I hope that they can keep going up and maybe pass above like 225. I think that'd be really solid. But the way that they've been like moving, man, you would think that they'd fall soon. But man, the AI sector and stuff is just too hot. And I don't think, they probably will slow down for a little while at some point. But for the next like 5 years, I'm sure that they'll end up going up like year over year. Yeah,
we shall see. And then we have, let's see, the next one, we have Iranical asking about Roku. So ROKU, it's up a little bit today. Over like the past couple weeks, they've been selling off quite a bit, but they're not looking bad for a dip buy, Tom. What do you think, Roku?
Yeah, Roku's not looking bad by any means. And on the daily, it's been kind of like low down here around like that 340-ish support. You could say like 350 too. And it's been looking pretty solid. And the past couple days have been looking pretty decent too. And whenever you look at it on like a 90-day, 15-minute, you can really see the consolidation down here around 340. And it's just been really sitting down here. So I really like it. And it looks like it really wants to pop up for tomorrow, possibly. If we can break out about 361, I'd really like the move out of Roku. And man, I'll really be watching this one and waiting because this one has a pretty high potential. Like, look at this. Just back at the end of July, this stock was at $490 per share. Now we're sitting at $357. That's a pretty big discount. I think if you like them for the long term, it's definitely a good time to start to average in. Now, it could always fall down to like 300 or even lower than that, but right now is a decent time to start.
Good stuff. And then, let's see, with the next one, we have JB asking about, or he says, VSCO looking good. No pun intended. Well, let's take a look, Tom. VSCO, Victoria's Secret. How's it looking?
It's actually, wow, up 2.8% today. Not looking bad. He said it wasn't looking good, right?
He said it was looking good.
Oh, it was looking good. Yeah, I mean, it was. But now, yeah, you're right. It's just a little flat today. Yesterday was a great recovery day. If we can break out of like that resistance of yesterday around like $70 to $70.50, I think it'd be awesome. But honestly, I was expecting better moves out of Victoria's Secret after those earnings came out. I will say, though, the double bottom around 64 doesn't look too bad here over the past couple of days, Mike. That's a pretty good bottom support level to look out for. And looking at it on the daily, I mean, man, ever since it came onto the market at like the beginning of August, it's had a nice pop up, and it's just been looking really good. And I would think that it could continue up personally. I like them for the long term. And, how could you not like them, to be honest? I mean, it's Victoria's Secret. Tons of people like them, and it's just such a big brand. Like, I don't think they're going to go anywhere, to be honest. And I think the stock should do pretty well. And the good news is that generally, like, even though like the retail stores are doing bad, like obviously like people are still buying their stuff online a lot. I know, I'll just say this. I know a lot of women who buy them, so that we'll just leave it there.
Alrighty, and then just looking across different stocks and like different momentum in the market right now, it looks like Nvidia is leading the way to the upside. Of course, DraftKings is having a great day, but they're pulling back a little bit right now. Another sector I wanted to point out, Tom, is I know that like these cruise lines and hotel stocks were really rallying yesterday, and it looks like they're still going. So like, let's take a look at Wynn, especially Wynn is really popping off. MGM's doing well too, but like, what are some like next resistance levels you have for us? Like, I know it's just like exploding to the upside.
Yeah, look at that. We had so much down days, and then Wynn pops from $90 to $100 within 2 trading days after all those slow moving down days. What a crazy move out of these stocks back up. Honestly, with Wynn, I'm seeing a huge resistance coming up at like $102. Now we are breaking out today above $100, which is great to see. That was a pretty big resistance. We stopped there yesterday, and I really was thinking maybe we would see some consolidation, but I'd love to see it break out again today above there. It could have been a pretty good day trade for anybody who noticed it yesterday, but I really think 102 will be the level to look for today, Mike. We're definitely having a pretty solid day, and if we get to 102, the stock will be up pretty well, like another 2 to 2.5%. So really watch for it. I think we might hit that and maybe go down today, but the stock has a lot of momentum, and looking at it on the daily, there's definitely a lot of room back to the upside. Like, I could easily see this stock coming up to 120 possibly over the next few months. And keep in mind, it could happen a lot faster than a few months, but I'm just giving a pretty safe outlook.
Good stuff. And then we have R saying CRWD, please. So, they're breaking that high. They have good momentum. Honestly, like, they've had a great earnings, or a great, I guess you could say earnings run up. Just keep in mind that they have earnings very, very soon. So I really would not hold through those. Their earnings are on August 31st after market close, and earnings are always extremely risky, and, they're pretty much a gamble.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard to play earnings. And, bringing up earnings, though, we have CrowdStrike with those earnings, like you said, coming up in a few days. Tonight we have CRM after close with earnings, which is going to be pretty interesting. I know, Mike, you were really interested in SPLK's earnings coming up tonight. And look at SPLK actually moving up today. And, I noticed this yesterday during the video, but with all the stocks we look at, I kind of left my mind, to be honest. This is a very good, honestly, inverse head and shoulders setup here. Look at these shoulders playing off this support. I'll highlight it in a bright blue. And I'm sure Mike notices this already, but Just for everybody watching the stream, looks pretty solid. There's a pretty solid support down here at like 130, another one at 140 now, and we're starting to really break out and starting to fill this gap back up towards like 170, and it just looks really solid, Mike, for the next few days. Now, they do have earnings, which makes it pretty risky, but sometimes whenever stocks get in these types of setups, with earnings, the earnings just help them explode up. So we'll have to see what ends up happening. Not saying to buy in right now, but who knows? If they have a good earnings and they start moving pretty well, it could be a decent time to get in possibly right after.
Absolutely. And then we have J Trade saying good morning and then asking if it's too late for DKS. So let's see. It's up 17% and, it's just been exploding. Look at that movement, Tom.
Man, that's insane to see with Dick's Sporting Goods. I mean,
Yeah.
wow, look at that EPS hitting 5.08. I mean, man, just a few years ago, we were seeing Sports Authority, Dick's even, a lot of companies like that having a lot of issues, and possibly a lot of them went out of business, like Sports Authority and a few other ones. But man, I'm glad to see Dick's kind of doing well right now. I'm sure that their online sales did very well, but man, I know that the Dick's Sporting Goods by me is like one of the most popular stores. And personally, I mean, man, I spend too much money there on golf balls. So they get a lot of my business, but I think that they're really solid. This movement today is great. And I'm really glad to see them doing well. It shows a good like retail company kind of doing well. They're doing good with their stores, and I'm sure they're doing great online too. And it's just really nice to see them kind of not going anywhere after seeing a lot of those types of companies starting to really fade out, after seeing like J.C. Penney's, Sports Authority, and just a lot of the other ones, unfortunately, have a lot of issues.
Yeah, I mean, would you say it's too late? Because I'm kind of leaning towards it is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I unfortunately, I am leaning towards that. It's definitely gapped up too much. Now, a lot of times we might see it gap up like this and then have maybe like 5 more green days, like pretty small ones though, to the upside, and then we'll hit a resistance. But I think eventually you'll see Dick's come back down below like 120 or something like that. This was definitely a good move up though, but I'm with you, Mike. I think it's definitely a little late.
All right. And then we have Vicky asking about Hood and Peloton. So Robinhood, let's take a look. Robinhood is down like 2% today, which I'm actually curious. Let me see something real quick. I'm curious because, Robinhood makes a lot of their money off of, just like the more people trade, the more they make, right? Like it goes for stocks, options, crypto, all that. And I'm curious, let's say with the combination of like Bitcoin and other cryptos rising, plus this AMC situation coming back, I would expect that to cause more trading activity, and I would expect that to obviously help Robinhood. So I don't know. I'm just curious, if AMC explodes up, I'm curious if Robinhood stock will follow. But what are you thinking on it?
Yeah, I actually really like that revelation, Mike. I think that's a really smart thing to think about, because just as they had their earnings, they were talking about that trading activity slowing down with AMC, Gamestop, and all those stocks going down. It was kind of driving investors out of the market, and obviously they weren't getting that type of activity that they were getting a few months ago. And I know that Vlad the Impaler had been talking about it possibly going down too. So that's a really interesting revelation, Mike. Really brought that to my attention there. Thanks for that. But really, I like to see it, and hopefully that can help them go up, because I think it will too. And if we start to see all this volume come back into the market and this activity starts to go up, you're right, they should make a lot of money. And you would expect, the unfortunate thing is that we might have to wait till they report earnings next, which will be, now next quarter, which is a little unfortunate now. But the good news is that maybe they'll come out with some data or something like that in between to help their stock go up. Hopefully they do.
All right. And then also Peloton. So we need some levels for Peloton. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think it looks really solid, actually, to the upside, possibly for another dip buy. Reminds me of some of these other longer term stocks that we've been looking at for dips, kind of like PLTR, like Palantir, and some of the other ones. I would say it's moving more along lines with the growth stocks, but I kind of like it. As far as levels go, they do have those earnings coming up tomorrow, it looks like. So just be a little careful with that. I don't think I'd buy it because of that right now, but if it does end up going up, I would say if it can break out above 130, you'd see a really solid breakout, but more of a shorter term level, I'd say above 115.
All right, and then we have Kathy saying, Mara, please. So let's take a look. It looks like it's down a little bit today, but the last time I checked, Bitcoin was also down. So overall, the trend is looking pretty good. They are continuously making higher lows, which is great to see. Of course, Bitcoin has a pretty big influence on this chart's movement, you can say. So Bitcoin would kind of be the main factor rather than any resistance or support level to watch out for. But overall, I would just say it looks good. I don't really want to give any specific levels because it really just depends on what Bitcoin does.
Yeah, that's going to be the main thing. You hit it right on the head. Whatever Bitcoin does will really affect these. And it looks like Bitcoin is kind of dipping down now. So keep in mind, we could see a little bit of consolidation. Now, Bitcoin has been going almost straight up. We hit 30K on the support, went straight up to 50K. Now, just don't be too surprised if we come down for just a few days. I wouldn't be too worried about it or anything. I saw some great news yesterday. Check out our YouTube video from last night on our on the Stocked Up YouTube channel, not the live channel, but the channel where we post our daily like market recaps on. Go check that one out. And we talked a lot about how whales were getting back into Bitcoin, and they had some great charts on CNBC that we posted and stuff. And it showed how these accounts with over $50 million in Bitcoin are driving back into this. And keep in mind, even though it's going down in the short term, I would expect it to keep going up with these whales coming back.
All right. And then we have Stefan asking about BLNK and Lucid. So BLNK is looking pretty good in my opinion. I think it has a lot of potential to rise over the next couple weeks. And then LCID also looks pretty good, but this one's more of like a long-term hold, like in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too. It would definitely be more of a long-term play for me. Personally, I like Lucid a lot. I think that I like the way their cards are designed, I should say. I don't really like, I don't know too much about their fundamentals or anything. We'll have to see how they end up going over the next few years as production starts going and stuff. But I like the design of their cars and everything. So hopefully they can start to get going. And I think it should do well for the long term. I think it's just more of like a dip buy right now. But personally, I would just sell puts or grab shares for them because, man, they're cheap. And who knows if they start to go up, like if you have shares of them at 22, that would be a really good level.
True that. All right, and then we have Vicky saying check Disney and Airbnb. So Disney, it sold off a little bit at open, but it's coming right back up, which is exactly what we want to see. Overall, it's looking good. It looks like a great long-term hold, in my opinion. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think it's a good long-term hold. As far as the short term, we are coming down today off of that resistance we hit yesterday around 180. So be a little careful of that 180 resistance for the next couple days. But for the long term, I think getting shares of them is great. And I think that they'll definitely have growth. And, they're supposed to do very well. It seems like their Disney Plus just keeps growing and growing. And they're expected to see still doubled growth out of that. So it's still supposed to be pretty good for the next few years. And I would think that their stock could end up moving well above their all-time high. It's just, keep in mind, they're kind of a slower mover. We're generally not going to see them just have a huge breakout out of nowhere unless some huge news comes out. And, we can see in the past, look at this on, looks like back on December of 11th of last year, at the end of the year, we had a huge pop out of nowhere. And I'm sure they reported some good Disney Plus numbers on that day. And sometimes they just come out with them good numbers and they'll just fly out of nowhere. So always have them in the back of your minds. And I think they're pretty good here around 180. It's not too bad. It's in the middle of the range. At least you're not buying at the top.
True that. And then we have Airbnb too. So this one exploded yesterday and it's still going. Finally, it's breaking above 155.
Yeah, it is. We've been waiting for that for a long time, Mike. And unfortunately, it happened within 30 minutes yesterday at open. That was crazy movement we saw. I'm glad to see it breaking out again today because it took so long to finally break out that just thank God that it ended up being a pretty good 2-day mover at least, not just a breakout then a big move back down or anything. I'm glad to see it kind of breaking out and just holding its ground, and hopefully it stays up above 160. I think that would be really solid.
Good stuff. And then we have Hornet saying UPST fall incoming with the question mark. So I would think so. However, I wouldn't just buy naked puts because it'd be hard to time it, and then their options are expensive. So I'm actually considering a put debit spread, but I can definitely see it.
Yeah, I can see it starting to fall off at some point too. The bad news is it kind of just broke this 220 resistance this morning and ran up a little bit. Now we did just come back down below it, which is bad news, but in the short term it could keep going up. But I would definitely say over the next month, I would definitely look for a big pullback at some point. And it might take a few days, but I think it'll definitely be coming it's sometime soon too.
All right, and then we have Maine saying, Chewy took my gains from yesterday. Well, that's not good. It's down 1.2%. If you are holding a weekly option, that would definitely play a big role into that because, those the theta on those weeklies are brutal, plus a fall of 1.2%. So anything with a short-term expiration, that can definitely happen on. And I just want to see something real quick. So let's say we look at the 90 call for August 27th. The 90 call right now fell 31% when the stock's down around 1%, right? And that's the August 27th expiration. Now, if we go out to October, that same strike price is only down basically 9%. So, when you have time, it's so much better. Think about it. A 1% move to the downside in the stock price on the weekly call, it made it fall over 30%. And on the call that expires in October, it made it fall 9%. So that just goes to show you how important it is to have time. They said that they have the September expiration. So, yeah, you have a little bit of time, not a ton, but it's definitely a lot better than a weekly. So, I'm sorry to hear that, but hopefully it pops back up. It's kind of lingering right around this 91 support, and intraday it doesn't look too bad.
Yeah, it doesn't look terrible intraday. The daily chart is not looking the best today, but intraday, at least we're getting a decent bounce off of 91, and this is a pretty decent green candle on the 5 minutes so far, so maybe we can see a little bit of a turnaround. And, sometimes after you see 2 solid days like we saw with Chewy, sometimes you do see a little bit of a red day or a little pullback at open like this. So don't be too discouraged, but hopefully it starts to get back up for you. I'd say if you fall below $90, then I'd get a little bit more worried.
All right. And then, Tom, what stocks are you watching right now? I know we have a lot going on with AMC, CLOV, DraftKings, CHPT. What are you watching?
DKNG is always on the top of my list to watch right now, especially with Kathy getting in. Really crazy stock. It's pulling back a little bit right now intraday, but this move at open was fantastic. Another one I'm kind of eyeing up today is some of the banks like JP Morgan, AMD, and then also eyeing up Moderna. But look at JP Morgan today. This is a pretty solid move up to the 160 resistance I have on the chart here. And yeah, it looks like they were at the bottom of their range around 150. This is a pretty good move, actually, back up to 160. And I'm glad to see him kind of getting back up. Banks were having a bad month there while they were falling. It looks like Bank of America looks really solid as well. Wells Fargo has been moving pretty well back up as well. So overall, the banks are having a pretty good move. And then Moderna is also looking pretty decent today, at least on the daily. I would say if Moderna can break out above 420, we could see a pretty solid move back to the upside, but it's just going to depend if we can break out above there over the next few days or not. But man, these banks are really running. Moderna, like you said, DraftKings. Today's just another good day, it seems like, for the market, but there is some stocks going down, like the China stocks. Unfortunately, some of the growth stocks, like we saw going up the past few days, like CHPT, BLNK, CLOV, a lot of those now are going red, unfortunately. But keep in mind, they did have a lot of green days, so it's not too uncommon to see a little pullback like we're seeing.
Alrighty. And then what I think is very interesting, Tom, is if you go to an AMC, when you just look at the AMC weekly options chain, normally the theta is brutal, but since the implied volatility is exploding so much, AMC is up 1.3%, and some of these put options are up anywhere from 5% to, some of them are down too, but I just want to show the stock's up 1.2%, and the weekly puts are also up. It just goes to show you how much that implied volatility is popping up, which means options all across the board are getting very expensive.
Yeah, definitely. And it looks like over the past few days, it looks like the IV was sitting around 150%. We popped all the way up to highs of almost 197% today. So that's pretty good movement there out of that IV. And if we see another big pop out of AMC today, and that IV goes up above 200%, man, it's going to be game on, probably like AMC was the last time. We're probably going to start seeing big 1,000, 2,000. I know last time I was seeing some crazy things like 20,000% gainers on the weeklies. Now, that's very unrealistic to try to look for those, but keep in mind it did happen last time.
Yep. And then we have Iranical saying, thoughts on AMD for a day trade. It's not my favorite, to be honest. That 110 resistance is really strong. Looking intraday too, it's not my favorite play in the world. What do you think?
Yeah, unfortunately, I would really try to make it break 110 before I got in. That would be how I'd play it. AMD was doing so good. I loved it whenever it broke out above 100. I really thought it would run, and I loved the move up to 120. I thought that was great. But at some point, you have to think it's going to come down. And right now, I would say just make it break 110. If we break out above that, you could get a decent move, like a quick move, possibly up to like 112, maybe 111 for a pretty quick like day trade. It would be pretty solid too, actually, and probably play out pretty decent. But looking at it, it looks like it might not be able to break back up above there. So I would say be really careful if you're just going to hop in calls. I would definitely think about making it break out above 110 before, just getting in or something.
Good stuff. And then I'm just looking at like a bunch of different things right now. It looks like airlines are trying to continue up. Like you look at DAL, AAL, like they are trending up, which is good to see. I mean, they've just been getting destroyed over the past couple months, Tom.
Yeah, they really have. And, just let's just say we took away this week. Like, let's say we were on Monday of this week, the stocks were not looking good. Like Delta was still down around that 37.50 support. I mean, man, these airlines were not looking good. And then they kind of had that news where they were going to help out in Afghanistan, help get people out of there. So it ended up turning the markets around a little bit for these airlines, which is good news. And I'm glad to see it happen. But you're right. I mean, they're just down so much that it's pretty scary. And, the thing is that they are down over the past couple months, but at least over the past like couple years, they're still up quite a bit from those lows. Like American had lows of $8.25. That's scary to see. Delta had lows all the way down at $20. So, man, I mean, it's just these stocks could keep going down. So I'm glad to see them kind of popping back. And I really hope that this was the bottom, and I hope they hold their ground, because I know a lot of people have been buying in shares. And the really good news, I think, is that if we look at their earnings, like ever since COVID happened, they're posting the best earnings that they've ever posted since then. Like -3 was their EPS last time. Now they're sitting at -1. So that's decent for them. American had decent earnings too. They're at -1.6, and they were at -4 on their last report. So hopefully they're turning it around.
For sure. Alrighty. Looks like Penn's having a great day, and I feel like everyone's kind of forgetting about this one. Like it's been lingering around support for looks like a couple months now, right around like $65, and now it's going to the moon, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's great news for Penn. I'm so glad to see this. And man, I hope that these like companies like Penn, DraftKings, Wynn, MGM, those companies start going up for the next few years. I think it would be awesome. And they've been going down, getting hammered for like the past 3 to 5 months. I mean, just terrible movement. So I'm really happy to see this. If they can break out above 80, I'd love it even more. But man, this move with over the past 4 days with these green candles has been crazy. I mean, if you would have bought these guys on support, you'd be so happy right now.
Oh yeah. All right. I'm just trying to see what else is moving. Like, I think we covered basically everything. How's just the SPY in general doing? Like, I know that, certain sectors are popping off, certain sectors are selling off. Like, how is just the SPY doing? Like, I know that we're pretty close to all-time highs. Like, what are you seeing?
Yeah, the SPY's not looking bad, actually. It looks pretty decent towards the upside to me today. I mean, it was looking like it was going to be flat more of in pre-market today, but it's been really flat for the past couple days. Yesterday, it didn't really do anything. It hit that all-time high in pre-market and then just kind of didn't do anything, like I said. So hopefully today we can get a breakout. It looks like so far, as of right now anyways, we're kind of heading back up there. And I would think it looks like we might get that breakout that we're looking for. And, maybe some people are looking for puts on the SPY, but unfortunately, we're just seeing stocks go up. We're seeing like DraftKings, NVIDIA, JPM, the banks, AMD, Caterpillar, like a lot of the bigger stocks are going up. Unfortunately, the growth stocks are going down today, like CHPT, the marijuana stocks, NIO, Netflix is a bigger stock, but BLNK, CHPT, those stocks are all red, but we have the bigger ones more of green. So I think that's why the market's going up. And I would honestly look for it to maybe break out towards all-time highs today. But if it fails, maybe look at puts. But I would say with the momentum, it looks pretty good.
All right, and then we have Jorge mentioning MVIS, and this one's up 7%. It has a lot of momentum, and it looks pretty good.
Yeah, and Microvision has been pretty good over the past few days, and they've been kind of in that growth sector as well. They've had great movement, and look at them on the daily. I mean, man, pretty good dip buy. Even at these levels, they're pretty far off their lows, and obviously really far away from their highs up there around 25. I mean, man, if they got up to 25 again, this would be crazy.
All right, and then we have Info Man saying, how's 420 stocks doing on your opinion? So let's take a look. Like, they've been struggling so much. Like, you look at Tilray, CGC, like, they've just been selling off so much. It looks like they're kind of like bottoming out, which is great to see, but I think they have like a lot of potential, but they're just very hard to trade short term. So I think the best way to go would, either like leaps or just like shares, because like they'll just like do nothing for like 8 months, and then like I don't know, I guess you could say like a 40 or 50 day period, they'll just explode, like just like we saw with Tilray. So in like PLNHF, like I think the best way to go is just something with like longer term, because they're so hard to trade for the short term.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard. And some good news coming up about these stocks that I've heard for the next few months is that they've been talking about a lot, like with the Democrats being in the House and the Senate and everything, and obviously controlling the presidency. There's a lot of talk. There's been a lot of talk anyways about the marijuana sector and possibly getting it legalized on a federal level at some point. And I've heard that after these infrastructure bills and after the spending bill, we could see a pretty big push for marijuana possibly. So maybe that'll be on their radar after this with these infrastructure bills. We'll just have to see. But I have heard some talk about that. So possibly, like, I know they put a deadline on that infrastructure bill for October 1st. So maybe sometime after that, we'll start to hear more about marijuana. But don't be surprised if we don't. Initially, they thought Biden would be great for marijuana, and I did too, honestly. But then he fired a bunch of his cabinet members who had done marijuana in the past once they said they did that on their report. So it was just a really bad scenario for marijuana, and it makes it seem like that he might not be for it, even though initially we all thought that. So we'll have to see how it ends up going. But overall, it's almost like a big political game with the marijuana, more than like the stocks themselves. Like, the companies themselves aren't doing too bad. You can see they actually got themselves up to positive earnings for once on Tilray after going negative all the previous times. But the main thing is once they start to legalize, I think that'll kind of bring the hype back. All
right, and then we have Gabriel asking about Ford. So Ford is doing pretty good right now. They're up like 0.5%. They're making higher lows. I know that they're doing a lot to like transition and like adapt to the current market, like especially with electric vehicles, which is exactly like what I like to see. Like if I were to invest into like Ford for the long term, like it's always good to have a company that's willing to adapt and stuff. So I like them. I think they're good, but I don't see them like doubling or anything like that in like the next or like by the end of the year, or like even in the next year. Like I think they're like a good stock, and they kind of they move in a unique way. So like I could see that their correlation to the market, like over the past year, was only like 0.35. So I think it's just like a good addition for your portfolio that has unique risk and also unique like potential.
Yeah, and from their low of COVID up to now, I mean, man, they're up quite a bit. Like if you look at the high they posted, they were up over 300% at the top. So I would not be surprised to see a little bit of a pullback either. And, we are seeing a pretty significant one right now. But I'm with you, Mike. I almost could see some consolidation for the next couple of years or so, possibly back down to like the $10 support, or maybe even like the $11 one down there. I would definitely look for some type of movement, though, because, just keep in mind, they have a lot of competition. GM is doing pretty well also. And Ford and GM's charts are pretty similar. Like they're both kind of falling off the table after having great recoveries. So I'd be really careful with them. And I like them for the long term, but for the short term, I think I would wait a little while before getting shares. I think you could get them a little lower.
Good stuff. So Tom, do you have any last minute stocks or anything you're watching for the rest of the day?
I'm still watching a lot of these airlines, Mike, like AAL, CCL, or AAL, DAL. I am watching the cruise lines too, though, like CCL and those ones as well. But man, like AAL looks so good at like double bottom down here around like $18. Now, keep in mind, this is going to be the riskier airline to get between like them, Delta, and United. But just looking at it, I do like the movement to the upside. And I think that we could get some good bounces off these supports like we're seeing. And honestly, for shares, I think around $20 is a great time to grab shares for AAL, or possibly grab like some $20 leaps that expire in 2023. I was honestly eyeing them up just now. They're only costing around like $440, $450 to grab those leaps. And If you go further out of the money, you get it really cheap. If you go in the money to $17, you're only looking at $600 for something that expires all the way in 2023. So I think that could be a pretty good play. And then you wouldn't have to worry about time too much either. And it seems like the airlines, like I said, they had good earnings, and I'd really like to see them come back. And then obviously I'm still watching DraftKings too. They're obviously they're probably a fan favorite today.
Good stuff. So thank you guys so much for watching today's stream. We had a great time. There's a lot going on in the market. Hopefully DraftKings continues up to end the day. But besides that, thank you guys so much for watching, and have an amazing day.